It's a new day dawning, the time is at hand, where the glory of the Lord will be revealed to every man. Open the door, open the door, open the door, and let the King of Glory in. Open the door, open the door, open the door, and let the King of Glory in.
All right, let the King of Glory in. Open up the door starts right now. So fling wide, you heavenly gates, and prepare the way of the risen Lord. The Apostle John was on the island of Patmos. He was in prison for the testimony of Jesus Christ. And he heard a sound behind him, and he said, "Behold, I looked, and there was a door standing open in heaven. And I heard a voice which was like a trumpet speaking with me, saying, 'Come up here, and I will show you the things which must take place.'" And that's what we need, my friends. We need a heavenly perspective of the things that are going on in the world around us, the things that the Word of God foretold us would come to pass, those things which must take place, those things which are taking place even now. That is what this broadcast is all about, discussing the issues of the day, discerning the times in which we live from a biblical perspective and world view. Good afternoon, everybody. Andy White here, and what you are about to hear is the fusion of heart, mind, and soul. And I want to just welcome everybody from all across the fruited plain, all around the spherical globe. I am streaming live on my Facebook page as well. If you'd like to join in on the conversation, please go on over to my Open Up the Doors Facebook page at facebook.com/faithfm 91.7. That's facebook.com/faithfm 91.7. Please join in the conversation over there and let me know where you're watching from, and your comments and your input and your insights are absolutely welcome there on Facebook in that comment stream. So please get a conversation going. If you would also like to contact me privately, correspond with me, you can reach me at ajwhite777 at icloud.com. It's ajwhite777 at icloud.com. We are streaming over the internet at hamptonschristian.com. If you're outside of the Faith FM broadcast area on the east end of Long Island, you can get the free Faith FM app over there at hamptonschristian.com. We have the app available for the Android devices, for your Apple devices, and for those of you on Facebook, we also have the links right there in the comment stream, I do believe. All right, so let's get to it. I think I've got all my preparatory stuff going, and I've got a lot on my plate, like I always have a lot on my plate, as we know. But I want to talk about the situation that's erupted over there in Syria this past week with President Trump pulling our troops back from the front lines, pulling them back off that area that Erdogan wants. And again, I want to talk about today, there's political aspects to what's going on, but there's biblical aspects to what's going on as well. And it's an incredible situation in a lot of ways. But as most of you probably know by now, the Trump administration this past Sunday night made the announcement that they were withdrawing U.S. troops from northern Syria. And he had a host of reasons for doing it, but either way, whatever those reasons are, it's been done. And it's something that Erdogan has been wanting to have done in a long time, because Erdogan has been waiting, sitting on the sidelines, well, to some degree, for a long time, waiting for his opportunity to sweep in on that area. And I'm going to talk a lot about Erdogan today. In fact, most of this broadcast today is going to be about Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. It's been about 2 years, more than 2 years, 2.5 years since I've done a update on Erdogan. But Erdogan, he's the caliph wannabe, and right now this caliph wannabe is unleashed and he's on the warpath. You know, Erdogan has always had huge ambitions and aspirations. One of the things I want to discuss today is, does he have the ability to fulfill those aspirations? And like I said, some things I want to talk about today. I want to talk about Erdogan's aspirations and give an analysis of the situation and discuss a little bit about if he's actually able to accomplish the things he wants to accomplish. You might think he's not, but we'll get to that when I get there. But you know what I want to begin with? I've I've spoken through the years numerous times over the past 5 years of this broadcast. I've spoken about the dreams and ambitions of Erdogan. And I don't want to spend really a whole lot of time rehashing all of that right now. However, if you are new to the broadcast, or perhaps you just haven't been keeping up with some of the things that are going on over there in the Mideast, especially with Turkey and with Erdogan, perhaps you're new to the Open Up the Doors family and you haven't heard those broadcasts, what I want to try and do is I want to try and encapsulate 5 years of discussions into a 5-minute summary. Yeah, good luck with that, right? But I'm going to do it really quick, just for those who are new and to give us a little bit of a brusher course on what we're dealing with here. Because President Erdogan is really, he's an Islamic radical dressed in a 3-piece suit. As a matter of fact, he does a lot of things in 3-piece suits. Someone showed me, in fact, it was Debbie Whitmer, the Open Up the Doors videographer, showed me a picture yesterday of Erdogan in a 3-piece suit riding a horse. Now, who rides a horse with a 3-piece suit on? I don't know. Apparently Erdogan does. But he is really, but this is the point. The guy, he's just an Islamic radical. He is as radical as these jihadists that we've seen around the world, but he does it in a very diplomatic fashion because he dreams of restoring the power and the glory days of the Ottoman Empire. It has been his lifelong dream and ambition because he envisions himself, folks. Erdogan envisions himself as the next caliph of a revived Ottoman Empire. That is his dream. That is his aspiration. That is what he's been striving for the 25 or 30 years he's been in public life. Back in April of 2017, Erdogan consolidated his power through a referendum, and I did a broadcast on that back in 2017. But at that time, I called that referendum that they were voting on in Turkey, I dubbed it the Enabling Act of 2017. I said that referendum that was voted on in April 16th, you could compare it to the Enabling Act of 1933, which gave Hitler unfettered power in Germany, because that was essentially the same thing that happened with Erdogan's referendum in 2017. Some people were even saying the exact same thing in Turkey. People who were being interviewed, students who were being interviewed right before the referendum passed, said things like this, quote, "Turkey is on the eve of a dictatorship with no checks and balances on executive power. This will be like Germany in 1933. It's exactly what I was saying, and I saw they were saying the same thing in Turkey. This will be like Germany in 1933, when Adolf Hitler rose to power. But of course they said we don't know what to do about it because it was being put up for a vote. But yeah, we're going to vote. We're going to vote to make me dictator. Everybody say aye, aye. If you said no, you're shot. That's how it works in these countries, even in Turkey. But one Arab newspaper headline said, quote, "Finally, Erdogan succeeded in transforming Turkey into the new Ottoman Caliphate." That was an Arab newspaper headline. In fact, it was Al Jazeera, I think. There was another Mideast paper that stated thusly, quote, "Will NATO," underline that word NATO, "will NATO now be silent on Turkey?" Yeah, that's a question we can ask right now. Will NATO be silent on Turkey? We'll get to that in a moment. But this Mideast paper said back in 2017, the referendum now transforms Erdogan into a semi-god. Yeah, that's what they said, a semi-god. This achievement is the formation of the Ottoman Caliphate. Turkey now will enter into a dark tunnel. There is a great division within Turkish society, as there is in every society. But there's a great division within Turkish society, and Erdogan's success will make him avenge the Kurds. Underline that. Avenge the Kurds and the nationalists. It is the end of Ataturkism, reference to Kemal Ataturk, who really established a democratic Turkey that Erdogan in his reign has reversed. And Ataturk wanted a secular, Turkey was a secular nation for many, many years. Erdogan has reversed all of that. And this Mideast paper is basically, saying that. It is the end of Ataturkism and the beginning of the Erdoganian caliphate. So I asked the question that this Mideast paper asked 2.5 years ago. Will NATO be silent? Folks, I've been predicting for at least 7 or 8 years now that Turkey would at some point in time leave NATO. They would either leave NATO on their own, or perhaps they would be pushed out. But in some point in time, there is going to be a breach with Europe and with NATO. And I think it's coming. It could be coming very, very soon, very relatively soon now. Because this past Monday, after it was announced Sunday night by President Trump that he was pulling back the troops, and after Turkey announced that they were going to go into Syria, Senator Lindsey Graham said he will introduce sanctions against Turkey if the country invades Syria. And he will call to suspend, here's the key, he will call to suspend Turkey's membership in NATO if it attacks Kurdish forces. Senator Graham tweeted, quote, I just spoke to Senator Chris Van Hollen about situation in Syria, and we will introduce bipartisan sanctions against Turkey if they invade Syria. Well, they have. And we will call for their suspension. We will call for their suspension from NATO if they attack Kurdish forces who have assisted the U.S. in the destruction of the ISIS caliphate, which we will also get to in this broadcast. But here we go, folks. We're here. We're there. Lindsey Graham said they were going to put forth a resolution to suspend Turkey from NATO. Will they follow up on that? Will they follow through on that? I haven't heard any news on that. If anyone there on Facebook has heard anything about this, please let me know. Give me some updates here. But the last I heard, I haven't heard anything about Turkey getting kicked out of NATO as of yet. However, let me move the ball down the field a little bit. In any event, when the day comes when Turkey's NATO relationship is finally dissolved, my friends, I have little doubt that it will seek to create a new military alliance. And that new military alliance that will come out of Turkey's separation and dissolved relationship from NATO, I believe, will be the rise of the Magog Confederacy that we see in Ezekiel 38 and 39. Of course, I can't be 100% sure, but I believe no matter what is going on, it is certainly heading that way, because Erdogan is a man with a plan, my friends, and he has been intrepidly executing that plan for decades now. For years, Erdogan, and these again, these are the things I have reported on through the years. These are things I've been speaking about for the last 5 years on this broadcast. But for years, Erdogan has been seeding Europe with Muslim refugees as well as expatriated Turks, so that once the dream of his caliphate is in place, if he ever succeeds in that dream, they will pledge allegiance to it. All of those Muslims, all of those Turks that are in Europe right now, and there's something like 1 million, it might be more, not exactly sure of the number, but I'm sure there's close to 1 million expatriated Turks in Europe right now, somewhere around that number. But they will pledge their allegiance to a caliphate, because that is what Sharia law dictates. And Erdogan has this plan, as I said. Erdogan has urged all the Turks living in Europe to have at least 5 children, saying they are the future of the continent. A few years back ago, in a conference, let me give you the quote, because he publicly said this, speaking to his citizens living in Europe. Erdogan said, quote, "Go live in better neighborhoods. Drive the best cars. Live in the best houses. Make not 3, but 5 children, because you are the future of Europe." And as Erdogan is saying, you're the future of Europe, in the back of his mind, he's saying, and you're my future too. Because if I can realize my dream of the Ottoman restoration of a caliphate, I will have all of those Muslims and Turks in Europe pledging allegiance to the caliphate. This is where this is going, my friends. Will he succeed? Well, of course, that remains to be seen. But there is no doubt that he's a man with a plan, And there is no doubt that he has been executing that plan throughout the years. I've been watching him throughout the years. But that brings us up to now. What is Erdogan ostensibly stating his goal is for this incursion into Syria? Well, this operation into Syria, he's called it Operation Spring Peace. Interesting name, because there's nothing peaceful about it. Well, then again, he does want a piece of Syria. Play on words, obviously. But why spring peace? I think in his mind, and I don't know, I really don't. This is conjecture on my part. This is 100% conjecture. But maybe he's thinking also what happened during the Arab Spring that happened. When was that Arab Spring? About roughly 10 years or so ago, 8 years ago, when the whole Mideast was revolutionized. Well, he wants his own kind of an Arab Spring. He wants an Ottoman Spring. He wants to revive the Ottoman Empire. And he has stated publicly, he said this at the UN just 2 weeks ago when he was there, that he wants to create a safe zone and replace the Kurds who are living there, the indigenous people that are living there. He wants to replace these Kurds, the Kurds that helped us fight ISIS. He wants to replace them with 2 million or so Syrian Arab refugees that are currently in Turkey right now. Yeah, that's what he wants to do. In other words, he wants to push those Kurds out and put them in again with people that would, at some point in time, in his mind anyway, pledge allegiance to him. Just today, you see, as I just said a moment ago, Erdogan has been seeding Europe for years and years and years and years. He's still doing it. But just today, in Reuters is reporting, President Tayyip Erdogan said on Thursday, that would be today, that Ankara will send, ready for this, 3.6 million Syrian refugees in Turkey. He will send them into Europe if European countries label the Turkey's military incursion as an occupation. Quote, we will open the gates and send 3.6 million refugees your way, Erdogan said in a speech to the Europeans. In other words, don't give me any grief about this invasion. Don't give me any grief about this incursion. He's blackmailing Europe, and he's using this blackmail and this excuse of a safe zone. You got to understand something about the Kurds that he's targeting. He considers them terrorists. Why does he consider them terrorists? There's a whole lot of political reasons for that over there in Turkey. They're an autonomous people. They want to have their own autonomous state. The bottom line is this: Erdogan wants that land because that land used to belong to the Ottoman Empire. So he's going to take it, and he's going to blackmail Europe in order to take it, to get it. That's what's going on one level of this, folks. And there's so much more. There is just so much more that I want to get to, and I will get to. But I'm going to take a quick break right now so I do leave myself some time to get into everything that I want to get into today. Excuse me. But here's a tune by Casting Crowns, I Know You're There. Stick around, folks. I'll be back in a moment with much, much more.
If all I had.
Casting Crowns, I Know You're There. And thank God he is there. A lot of stuff going on in the world these days, but thank God he's always there. Welcome back. Andy White here. If you are just tuning in, you are listening to Open Up the Doors here on Faith FM, WEGB 90.7 and 93.3 in that peak, WEGQ 91.7 in Quag. And I've been talking a little bit about the situation in Syria today, giving a little bit of background if you're just joining in with President Erdogan and some of his dreams and aspirations, and just a tidbit of what's going on over there. And there's so much. I've been covering this for 5 years. I can't obviously cram it all in and cover it all over again. But in this block, I do want to talk about two parallel, if you will, tracks that are going on. I want to talk about the humanitarian and the political analysis of what's going on, and then the scriptural, biblical, prophetic analysis of what's going on. Because this situation is going to have President Trump's decision with this is going to have huge ramifications, my friends, on several different levels. Really on a political and on a natural realm, geopolitical level, I believe this is an absolutely huge mistake that President Trump has done here. It's a huge strategic error. Yet having said that, as I always say, the geopolitical maneuverings and machinations of men and of nations are nothing less than the prophetic determinations of the living God. This clearly falls under that. And, I don't want to pile on President Trump right now. He's got a lot of stuff going on. And the reason he's given for pulling the troops out, the reasons I can understand, they're somewhat noble reasons. He has said from day one he wants to bring our troops home from overseas. He doesn't want to be the cop of the world. A lot of people agree with that viewpoint. It's a lot, but you know what? He's got the right reasons, but the wrong situation. This is the problem with it right now. As pure as his reasoning might have been, and I'm only going by what he said, because quite honestly, obviously, I don't know what the decision was, why it was made. Everyone, the Pentagon, his Joint Chiefs of Staff, they were all taken by surprise. They were all against it. It's just a strategically and tactically bad decision. So what made him do it? The prophetic determinations of the living God. It's almost inexplicable, because there's so many levels to this, as I said a moment ago. It was the right reasons, perhaps, the wrong situation, because we have failed to keep our promise, and we have failed to keep our commitments to the Kurds. And that's going to have real ramifications in a political sense around the world. But Trump aside, I was stating 3 and 4 years ago, before Donald Trump was even running for president, I was stating that Erdogan would invade Syria as soon as there was a vacuum left by ISIS. This is something Erdogan's been wanting to do for years. This is something I've been predicting he would do for years. I've been stating for years that Erdogan was using ISIS to do his dirty work. All those years when Erdogan was ostensibly helping us to fight ISIS, I did broadcasts on the air here on Open Up the Doors saying that was an absolute facade. That was an absolute lie. Erdogan was buying the oil from ISIS to help supply them with their money. He was buying their oil on the black market. He was taking in their refugees. He was taking in their fighters into Turkey. This was being reported by missionaries and by people that were on the ground. But the public face of Erdogan was that he was helping us fight ISIS. It was a fraud. It was a lie. And that reminds me, by the way, I'm wondering, where is Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi? Where is he? Now, I've heard an unverified rumor, and I want to stress, I saw somebody sharing this. It's an unverified rumor. It is totally not corroborated. It's just intriguing. But I want to emphasize this. I don't want anybody accusing me of passing out fake news, because I am definitely putting on the clarification that this is just a rumor. But it's nevertheless an intriguing rumor. I've heard that Erdogan has been hiding Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Unverified and unknowable at this point, but it's certainly interesting. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But getting back to reality, assuming that might not be, a Kurdish military official. See, I told you, folks, this is just bad on so many levels. This is really just, unfortunately, it's bad PR for U.S. credibility on the political scene, on the international scene. a Kurdish military official. Remember, these people were helping us to defeat ISIS. They lost something like 18,000 or more of their people, their soldiers. But let me tell you what he said once he heard about and saw that the Americans were pulling out. Quote, despite our efforts to avoid any military escalation with Turkey and the flexibility we have shown to move forward in establishing a mechanism for the security of the borders, the American forces did not fulfill their commitments, and they withdrew their forces from the border areas with Turkey. U.S.-backed Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, the leader said. They control the area, but they're not going to be able to hold on to it. I know we wish the best for Turkey. I mean, for the Kurds, I should say. And certainly our prayers are with them. But militarily wise, they're no match for Turkey. And this Syrian Democratic Forces leader, that was the SDF. The SDF was the forces that we were in alliance with in fighting ISIS. This leader said, quote, there were assurances from the United States of America that it would not allow any Turkish military operations against the region. Folks, we've broken that promise. And I believe, I really do, hear me out here, I believe God takes very seriously when leaders break their promises, when they break covenants, when they there's going to be ramifications in this politically, spiritually, on a lot of different levels. Because let me share with you what General Jack Keane has said, and I have a lot of respect for General Jack Keane. He's one of those retired generals who's a pundit on Fox News, and he's a very good man. But here's what he said. There's one word that describes this for me: betrayal. That's a heavy-duty word, folks, coming from a general who's been very, very, very supportive of President Trump. There's one word that describes this for me: betrayal. General Keane went on to say, I think it's a strategic blunder that will have significant implications. We went into eastern Syria to defeat ISIS. The Syrian Democratic Forces, which the Kurds were a part of, had 60,000 ground troops. We provided 2,000 to help them. It took us 2 years. We fought every single day to defeat ISIS. The Syrian Kurds, who we're talking about here, lost over 11,000 in that fight. A moment ago I said 18. I was wrong on my number. They lost 11,000 in that fight. And General Keane goes on to say, and now we're trying to keep our foot on their throat? Oh, he's speaking of ISIS, I'm sorry. And now we're trying to keep our foot on their throat so they don't reemerge again in eastern Syria. Speaking about ISIS, we've got to keep them suppressed. ISIS has not been completely eradicated despite the popular opinion in the media and in the news. General Keane says they're already showing some activity. How can we possibly walk away from the Kurds? Keane said the United States was engaged in a successful partnership with the Kurdish people. But unfortunately, political considerations caused this sudden reversal. Now, we know that Erdogan spoke with Trump last week, trying to urge Trump not only to withdraw. Erdogan was actually asking us for help to help him with his incursion. That's insane. Now, Trump did say no to that. But General Keane goes on to say we cannot permit ISIS to reemerge. We cannot permit Iran to take over all of Syria and therefore be able to encroach on Israel, General Keane said. The other day, President Trump said this, quote, and I'm sharing all this for a reason, because there's so many different levels here. And a lot of this is playing into biblical prophecy, my friends. But the other day, on the 7th, what's that? That must have been, I think, maybe Tuesday. I think that was Tuesday. President Trump said, quote, Turkey, Europe, Syria, Iran, Iraq, Russia, and the Kurds will now have to figure the situation out. Really? Seriously? President Trump has been arguing the past few weeks in many statements that Turkey will assume responsibility for all ISIS fighters captured in the region. Really? Hasn't President Trump seen the reports showing that Erdogan has been using Turkey? He's got to know this. He could not possibly not know this? Erdogan has been in bed with ISIS from the start. I don't know what is in the president's thinking. I can't begin to understand. Something is amiss. But just today's paper from Beirut, Reuters reports today, the Syrian Kurdish-led authorities accused Turkey of shelling. The Turks shelled a prison holding Islamic State militants of more than 60 nationalities, calling this, quote, a clear attempt to help them escape. The Turks weren't bombing the prison to obliterate it and kill everybody. They were selectively bombing it so the ISIS prisoners could escape. There was no immediate comment from Turkey. That tells you a lot right there. This Kurdish official said, these attacks on prisons holding ISIS terrorists will lead to catastrophe, the consequences of which the world may not be able to handle later on. Like I said a moment ago, folks, there are a lot of ramifications on several different levels with this decision. And again, I really don't mean to toot my own horn. I really don't. But I've been declaring for a very long time, as I said a moment ago, in several different broadcasts over the years, that Erdogan was using ISIS for his own purposes. Just last month, the New York Post, September 21st, not even a month ago, an article in the New York Post said this. The name of the article was, why isn't the media covering Turkish President Erdogan's ties to ISIS? This was just in the New York Post a month ago. Why isn't the media covering Turkish President Erdogan's ties to ISIS? And now President Bush has been saying, oh, Turkey's going to take care of ISIS. They're going to be the custodians. Folks, try and square that circle. The Post wrote, what should disturb Americans most about Erdogan is not his efforts to influence Congress, which he's been trying to do, his abysmal record as a jailer of journalists, which he's done, his genocidal war against the Kurds, which he's engaged in right now, or even the $100 million mosque that Erdogan has constructed in Lanham, Maryland, which I did not even know about till I read this article. And this is what the Post wrote just a month ago, of what Americans should be concerned about. It's Erdogan's commitment to global jihad, and specifically to ISIS terrorists. Since 2012, the Turkish intelligence service, MIT, under Erdogan's direction, has been providing resources and material assistance to ISIS, while Turkish customs officials have turned a blind eye to ISIS recruits flowing across Turkey's borders into Syria and into Iraq. Scores of ISIS fighters captured by pro-U.S. Kurdish forces in northern Syria showed Turkish exit stamps on their passports. This isn't a conspiracy theory. These are facts. They've boasted of the direct assistance they have received. The ISIS fighters have boasted of the direct assistance they had received from Turkish authorities. The ISIS fighters that have been captured or have been interviewed, Turkish intelligence knows everything, one captured ISIS fighter told his Kurdish captors recently. Many former ISIS fighters have now joined the Turkish-backed forces that have occupied the Syrian Kurdish city of Afrin, where they have engaged in ethnic cleansing. Oh, but Erdogan's going to be the custodian of these ISIS fighters. What in heaven's name is going on with our intelligence community? That they're not telling this to President Trump, something that we could see in our daily newspapers? I don't know, folks, but that's hoping that's looking at the geopolitical analysis. What about the biblical prophetic analysis? Like I say all the time, you probably don't want to hear it anymore. The machinations and maneuverings of men and of nations are nothing less than the prophetic determinations of the living God. What are we seeing? What are we witnessing? We may possibly, and I want to stress the word possibly, because I'm not claiming that it is. But we may be possibly be seeing the very beginnings of possibly a Daniel 8 scenario. The clash between the ram, who's Persia, and the goat, Yavan, who's Turkey. And we need to be paying attention with eyes wide open and discernment and knowing the Word of God. And I know there's some varying opinions about Daniel chapter 8. But it's very intriguing and interesting when you see what's been going on. Because when you read Daniel's chapter 8 through 12 in context, which we obviously cannot do right now in this broadcast, but in a nutshell, Gabriel specifically tells Daniel the vision that he's received is for the time of the end. A lot of people will tell you that Daniel chapter 8 was fulfilled by Alexander the Great when he conquered Persia. Now, Alexander's conquest was certainly a foreshadowing, just as Antiochus Epiphanes and his abomination of desolation in the days of the Maccabees was also a foreshadowing of the Antichrist. However, folks, there are certain specific elements in those prophecies, there are certain specific elements in those foreshadowings that were not fulfilled. But the real key is the fact that Daniel was specifically told that the vision he had received was for the time of the end. We read in Daniel, for instance, I'll just read a couple of verses before I go to my next break. But we read in Daniel chapter 8, verses 3 and 4, I saw the ram pushing westward, northward, southward, so that no animal could withstand him, nor was there any that could deliver from his hand, but he did according to his will and became great. It's intriguing, because for the last several years now, since we've pulled out of Iraq, we've seen Iran, Persia, come very close to succeeding in fulfilling their dreams of a Shia crescent that stretches from Tehran all the way to the Mediterranean. And they have pretty much essentially taken control of Iraq, my friends. They control Hezbollah in Lebanon and Syria. They support Assad in Syria. They use the Houthis in Yemen as their proxies. They have clearly butted to the north, the west, and the south in a very Daniel sort of way. A month ago, they attacked the oil fields in Saudi Arabia. Funny how that's dropped out of the news, isn't it? Funny how there's been no retaliation for that, in spite of so much blustering from both the U.S. and the Saudis. Whatever happened to that in the news? Now, again, I want to be clear that I'm not saying that this is that which was spoken of by the prophet Daniel, but it certainly, folks, it certainly is taking on a very strong, eerie resemblance as to what is described in that chapter. Daniel chapter 8, verses 17 through 21. Understand, son of man, that the vision refers to the time of the end. Now, as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep with my face to the ground. But he touched me, and he stood upright. He said, look, I am making known to you what will happen in the latter time of the indignation. For at the appointed time shall the end be. The ram which you saw having two horns, they are the kings of Media and Persia. Well, you know the Kurds, folks, are the descendants of the Medians. The Kurds are the descendants of Media. The ram which you saw having the two horns, they are the kings of Media and Persia. And the male goat is the kingdom of Greece, which in the original Aramaic there is Yavan. Yavan was the west coast of modern-day Turkey. The Iranian foreign minister, Mohammad Zarif, on Sunday, warned Turkey against any military move in Syria. And then yesterday, Iran launched unannounced drills near its border with Turkey, as the Islamic Republic again warned Turkey not to move forward with its military operation in northern Syria. Are we seeing the clash, the beginning signs of the clash of Daniel 8 between the ram and the goat? Obviously, time will tell. Is a Daniel 8 scenario being set up? Or as one friend of mine suggested, because again, there are different interpretations of this. There are different opinions of this. I had one friend tell me it's simply the king of the north, Turkey, the king of the north, fortifying and establishing his power base. Is it either? Is it both? But it is intriguing to be watching this. We are living in exciting times, folks. I'm going to have more when I get back. I've got to take a break right now. Stick around, and I'll have some closing thoughts in a moment. Here's Jesus Culture with a tune called Fierce. God's love is fierce, folks. Thank God we have a God who's fierce in his love for us. Stick around. I'll be right back. Fusion of Heart, Mind, and Soul. This is Open Up the Doors with Andy White here on Faith FM, WEGD 90.7 and 93.3 in that peak, WEGQ 91.7 in Quad. And thanks for joining in, everyone, all across the fruited plain and all around the spherical globe to this week's edition of Open Up the Doors. We are almost out of time if you're just joining in. But if I am streaming live over on my Open Up the Doors Facebook page at facebook.com/faithfm91.7. If you never liked my page, please like my page over there on Facebook, the Open Up the Doors page. If you'd like to correspond with me, you can email me at ajwhite777@icloud.com. And for those of you also who have YouTube accounts, please go visit my YouTube account. Just look up Andy White. Just look up Open Up the Doors. You can just search it in the Google search, the YouTube search, and subscribe. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I need to increase the subscribers over there. I want to expand the ministry. I want to expand the viewership. I want to expand the outreach. So I need your help to do that. So if you've never subscribed to my YouTube page, please do so. And you can hit that little bell, and there's a little bell on the page. You'll get the updates and the notifications for when we upload things to YouTube. All of these Facebook Live streams, Debbie takes them and she edits them down. She edits out the music. We have to do that for copyright reasons. She edits out some of the commercials and stuff. So you get an edited version of this live Facebook stream. Plus, you also get a much better audio. Like right now, people are talking about how on my personal page the audio is out of sync. That's been something that we've been having a problem with for a while with on my iPad, but not my iPhone. But I won't get into all those technical things right now. But once this video is produced, it should be out. It's usually out by the next day, tomorrow, Friday. I would appreciate those of you who believe this broadcast, who believe this ministry has value. I would please ask that you would please share this video, this audio video that will be posted tomorrow, the edited version, because that's the one I really like to get out. That's the one I really like to share. The Facebook streams, the raw ones, we usually take them down once the edited version is available. But I need for you to do me a real special favor this weekend, because I am, once again, for no apparent reason, and I don't want to get angry here, but they've got me blocked on Facebook again. So until Sunday afternoon, I can't post to any groups. I can't. I could post to my own pages, but I can't share anything. I'm in like 50 groups on Facebook: Christian groups, news groups, prophecy groups, and now I can't share anything to any of those groups for the next 4 days. I got a notification this morning saying I've been blocked and restricted. They gave me no reason. I wasn't doing anything. I literally wasn't doing anything except sharing the page promo for today's broadcast on a couple of pages. I don't understand it whatsoever. It's really, really infuriating to me, and it's frustrating to me. So I really could use your help, folks, to share the video, especially the good version that comes out tomorrow. All right, having said that, let me get back to what we're talking about, because I'm running out of time. I close out the last block talking about the Daniel 8 scenario, and I just want to touch upon that one more time, because as I said a moment ago, I realize there's a lot of different interpretations to this. But here's the thing, like I said, the reality on the ground is so much lining up with Bible prophecy. And I do think it's important that we pay very close attention. Pay attention to the details. Pay attention to the prophecies. We need to give them our due diligence, lest we be caught off guard. That's the whole point of sharing these things. It's not a question of like, looking to the news to interpret Bible prophecy. It's not about eisegesis, reading into the scripture what you want it to say. It has nothing to do with that. But I do believe, because one of the things that Gabriel told Daniel, when Daniel said he didn't understand the prophecy. Now, understand this. Daniel got these prophecies. Daniel got these visions. And Daniel himself said he was distraught because he could not understand what they meant. And the angel said to him, Daniel, seal up the vision. Seal up the vision for the people, first for the last times. And the people in those times, they will understand. So we need to be in the Word, asking God for revelation and illumination, that we would understand what those ancient prophecies were saying, and not just fluff them off as to say, oh, that was fulfilled, 2,000 years ago. No. There's so many principles that I can't get into right now about prophetic interpretation. There's the principle of dual fulfillment. There's the principle of foreshadowing. Let me give you one example. We all know this one very well. In Isaiah 7:14, where Isaiah says to Ahab, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and give birth. That was a sign for Ahab, who lived 3,000 years ago. We know that was 1,000 years or so, 700 years before Jesus was born. So how would that be a sign for Ahab? No, because Isaiah's wife became pregnant, if you read the next few chapters. There was a foreshadowing. There was a that's probably the best word to use, a foreshadowing. There was a prefigurement. So something happened in Isaiah's day that Ahab would recognize as being the sign, but it wasn't the fulfillment of the prophetic word until Mary, a virgin, became pregnant almost 1,000 years later. So again, we have these principles in Scripture where we need to understand foreshadowing, where we need to understand prefigurements. That's why it's important to not just fluff it off and say, oh, Alexander the Great fulfilled Daniel 8. Well, in some ways he did, but it was just a foreshadowing of the complete and final fulfillment at the end of the age that Daniel says. Now, I took up a lot of time. I went down that bunny trail, but I think it's an important one. But I've only got a few minutes left. If this is the possibility of a Daniel 8 prophecy fulfillment, that would mean Erdogan would be the large horn on the goat that's broken. So there's things we're going to be looking for. But that aside, the huge question is, does Erdogan have the ability to accomplish his ambitions, as I said at the top of the broadcast? Erdogan has all these ambitions, but is he able to actually succeed or not? Well, I'll tell you something. Erdogan's a shrewd cookie, my friends. And thus far, he has been able to snake his way around a lot of different obstacles, politically, in his own country, as well as on the global stage. But it always comes down to three things: money, real estate, and military might. So what is Erdogan trying to do now? He's trying to shake down Europe for money. He's saying, if you don't support this, if you don't support my incursion into Syria, I'm going to release 3.5 million refugees, into Europe. So I want you to pay me. He's been doing this for years. Real estate. Well, obviously, he's going in on the real estate right now. He wants more of Syria so it can be included in his Ottoman Empire. And then there's the military might. Now, Turkey's not a superpower, but it does have the second largest military in NATO, next to us. They have the 9th largest military in the world. But if you add the abilities of the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Countries, into the mix of what might become a recognized caliphate, you would attain superpower status. And I'm running out of time. I did a broadcast. Look it up on YouTube. I did a broadcast a couple of years ago called The OIC and Psalm 83, where I talked about what the OIC is and what their military might would be if they would be. Right now, they're a paper tiger. Right now, the OIC is a paper tiger. But if they found a leader that could unify them more, if a caliphate actually, a legitimate caliphate actually came into existence, all of a sudden the OIC would become something of a superpower. And Turkey has been building these alliances for the last several years. He's been building the alliances with the OIC member states. States that include the Magog alliance of Ezekiel 38. Libya, Sudan, Somalia, Ethiopia. And there was that bombshell article about 2 years ago that was published in Yeni Shafak about the OIC states surrounding Israel and the Muslim army. The title of the article was, "What if a Muslim army was established against Israel?" And it was talking about all the OIC states uniting militarily. Well, a strong leader and a caliphate would do just that. So does Erdogan have the ability to do that he's seeking to do? Maybe not right now, but he's a man with a plan. And we need to keep watch, my friends. We need to stay informed. That's why I do broadcasts like this. And there's so much going on. And I know I can't get into every single thing that's going on in the geopolitical realm and all the political ramifications. I just don't have the time to do that in this broadcast. But I do want you to see and understand the correlation between the political and the biblical. And we need to pray for those Christians and those Kurds right now who are facing a trial, because Turkey aims to wipe them out. Turkey is aiming to wipe out the Christians and the Kurds who have fought alongside American troops to capture ISIS. And now Trump says he's going to give ISIS prisoners to Turkey who supported and aided ISIS. We need to watch and pray, my friends, because the days are evil. And I'm out of time and I got to run. But thanks for joining in. And please share this around from the Open Up the Doors page all across the Fruited Plain. Thanks a lot. God bless.